New York State Attorney General Letitia James recommends an independent panel oversee the NYPD in the wake of a recent string of clashes with protesters. Chief Terry Monahan says it's hard to be a cop right now with a no confidence vote from city and state leaders.
There is a lot of animosity towards the police right now, a feeling that people can do what they want on the streets. Morale is low. When you hear all the rhetoric going on right now, as a police officer, it's tough to be a police officer. When you're going on to a street corner now, especially if you're doing any sort of quality of life enforcement, people are resisting. They're fighting with you right now.
That was yesterday on the PIX11 Morning News. Joining me now this morning is Queens City Councilman Donovan Richards, who also serves as the chairperson of the Public Safety Committee. So good morning to you, Mr. Richards.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks for joining us. So what is your response to Chief Monahan's statement about it being tough to be a cop in New York right now without any support?
Well, let me be clear that overwhelmingly majority of all New Yorkers support the New York City Police Department. What we are saying, though, is that we don't condemn an entire department, but we are condemning those officers out there who are not upholding the badge, practicing CPR in our communities. Mm-hmm. And we are looking for a police department that works and treats everybody fairly. And we want safe communities at the same time. There's no contradiction in saying the two.
So you voted against the budget bill that was passed last week because you wanted to see more significant cuts to the NYPD. So I'm curious as to why you think the billion-dollar cuts do not go far enough.
Well, let me say I didn't vote against it just because of the budget cuts. You know, the $1 billion figure is important in terms of reinvesting back in communities, especially communities of color who've been impacted by COVID-19. We see the disparities that have historically existed in these communities, and we needed to ensure that there were real investments as we talk about a $9 billion deficit in New York City. What is our priority? To make sure our young people have jobs over the summer, or is our priority to ensure that they're locked up? So we were talking about the priorities and what those priorities should be in a post-pandemic world, and even in a pandemic as we speak. But at the end of the day, the culture of the NYPD needs to be reformed. And we saw what they did during the protests, kettling protesters. We saw what has historically happened to people like Eric Garner when it came to the chokehold, John Bell, and so many other countless others. And we're saying now is time for reform.
And so I want to talk about that reform because the Attorney General came out with her report yesterday talking about some things that she would like to see done, one of them being a commission that will oversee the police department that involves the city council members as well, that would be able to hire and fire a police commissioner, among other things. Do you think that that is a step in the right direction for police reform?
Absolutely. Attorney General Tish James hit it right on the head. The police can no longer police themselves. And we've been saying this for a very long time. When you look at their disciplinary system, it's been broken for many years. And this is why the repeal of 50A was so important. This is why I passed a bill that will create a disciplinary matrix. But we need to go further. We need to reimagine what policing looks like in the 21st century. And the police department shouldn't be the answer to every social ill. Why are they responsible for homeless services? Why are they involved in youth services? Why are they involved in every facet of life that they shouldn't be? They should not be in charge of necessarily handcuffing kids or being social workers in schools. We need to ensure they are doing what we put them there to do, and that is to ensure we keep communities safe. Let the social workers be the social workers. Let the doctors be the doctors. Let the homeless service counselors and social workers do what they need to do. The police department.
Yeah, and the mayor's office, by the way, has come out against saying that they don't believe that a commission would be the answer to any of these issues. But I want to get your take as the chair of public safety here on your take on the recent spike in crime. New York Post reporting that only one person released under bail reform has been charged with a shooting, and only 1% of the 11,000 inmates released from Rikers during the pandemic have been found anywhere near a shooting. But yesterday, Chief of Department Terry Monahan used that as an example, saying that the issues with Rikers Island and the release is why we're seeing an uptick in crime. Your response?
Rhetoric. That is not what we should be focused on. We've been saying this for a long time. Show us the facts. And obviously they could not show us the facts when it came to the correlation between bail reform, which was something that penalized poor Black and brown New Yorkers, all because they could not spend the money on bail. Let me say this to you. We need to get these illegal guns off of the streets. That is the problem. And then we need to ensure we're investing in these communities. But when you take away basketball hoops from kids in the summer, when you snatch their summer youth employment jobs, when you don't have social services in the communities, when you have the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression, what the heck do you think is going to happen on New York City streets? You're going to have mayhem. So we need to ensure that we're investing in these communities so we're never back here again. We condemn the actions of those who are out there shooting. They should be held accountable as well. But it doesn't mean NYPD officers who also break the law shouldn't be held accountable as well.
We also did ask the chief about the controversial chokehold bill. Here's what he had to say about it, and I want to get your take.
We have no objection to the chokehold portion of it, but any cop who's ever fought with someone on the street trying to get them into cuffs, there's a great possibility your knee is going to end up on that individual's back. And now this new law is criminalizing it, where you have to worry if someone who may have taken a shot at you that you are now arresting, if your knee hits their back, you become the criminal.
So the diaphragm issue, they're calling it the diaphragm bill now, right? It has not been signed by the mayor. Yesterday, they said they're lobbying for it to be changed. Any chance that that bill can be changed, or is the language staying put?
No, the language is being put. We made that very clear working with Councilmember Landsman, who's the prime sponsor of that bill. Listen, the NYPD is exaggerating what the purpose of this bill is. The purpose of this bill is to ensure that situations like what we saw in Minnesota with George Floyd do not happen. I don't think any of us would stand with a district attorney who would arrest an officer because they need to make an arrest, a gun collar, and to hold somebody accountable who obviously was trying to break out of handcuffs. I don't see district attorneys prosecuting this case. But what we do see and what we do want is to ensure that if you put your knee on somebody's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that you would be held accountable. Let me also just add that the chokehold bill was in the NYPD's handbook and guidelines, and they weren't even adhering to that. So therefore, we have to pass laws because, unfortunately, the police department cannot police themselves.
Understood. And lastly, I do want to ask you, we can't have you here and not ask about the primary race results for the Queensborough president. Where do you stand?
We're still up over 10,000 votes. The absentee ballots started getting counted yesterday. It seems like it's going to be a very slow process, but we're feeling relatively good based on what we saw yesterday. The count will resume today, and I'm assuming it's going to take about a month before we see all of the results, but yesterday was a great day for us.
A slow process indeed. Donovan Richards, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Have a great day. Stay warm.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's hard not to with the temperatures, right? 7:25.